Hello, everyone. My first time, so if I say something really bad, please forgive me. I'm going to talk about the BYOD. This is part of the lever process that we deploy in our organization. So we kind of automate like user account AD creation, mailbox creation, and everything's there. But as soon as we introduce Intune Bring Your Own Device, when somebody leaves the museum, they've got some data on their phone, and then we want to remove those before they leave the museum or something like that. So I come up with some solution that I use PowerShell to do that job. So who is me? My name is Naw Awn. I'm application analyst. I can be contacted on that Twitter feed, and I work for the British Museum at the moment. So what I'm trying to talk about today would be just a brief description, what I just said now, to retire the device when somebody leaves the organization. And then we'll take a short tour on my implementation, which actually includes SQL Server, Active Directory, Office 365, a bit of the credential encryption, and the way I use PSD to separate codes and the data, and then the lesson that I learned doing so. So if I'm if I'm operation person, if I want to find out who has got the Intune license or who has got the email on their mobile phone, what I can do is I can just run search AD account, user only, whoever is, and then I'll get the account which are expiring. I could add another switch there. I think it's time span. Then you can put like 3 days or 1 day. It will tell you which account are about to expire in 2 days or 3 days, depending on your options. And then assuming that I logged into, I connect to Microsoft Online Service, and if I just do for each loop and everyone who is about to leave, and then get their detail, and then just find out if they have the Intune license for it. So I'll then get a list of users, whoever got the Intune license. So that's, if I'm odd person, I can just run it, and then I can just find out who has got the Intune license. And then if I need to do a retire device, I can then just get onto the Intune portal and then retire the device there and then. So I want to automate that process. So how do I go about automating that process? If I just use that just one-liner, like try to put it on a schedule task, I'm gonna end up getting the same user again and again. So I want to overcome that bit. So how do I do it? So let's look at the flowchart diagram. So the first bit, so get the expiring user, which I've already done, and then check the license, which you got already seen on the PowerShell bit, and then I'm gonna put those onto like a memory or array or something like that. But initially, I was thinking of using CSV, so I could put all those user data on a CSV, but the problem would be if somebody get onto the machine and then delete that CSV, will it be the next time when it run again, it will then fire the same thing again, so which we don't want. So I'm thinking maybe use SQL Server, because you would normally have SQL Server lying around, so we could just put like a database and then stick it in there, all the information that we want, and we'll then work from there. So the first, let's say I run that command, and then the first time I get all those user lists and whoever is about to leave the museum or about to leave the company, we'll then stick those information into the database and then send an email, alert email to people in operation team. So they will then know, oh, this person is going to leave. So they get on the ticketing system, they will get the email alert, and then they'll get the ticket basically. Based on that information, they can then plan when they want to retire the device, something like that. And the other bit is just for the sanity check. If something which is in a database already, but it has the reminder email has not been sent to the operation team, then do that again and then update the record, and then basically go through the whole loop for every single user which are on the list, and the new one plus the one inside the database. And yeah, so that's how I implemented it. And so let's look at the VS Code now. How do I implement it in PowerShell? Can you guys see that? Is it a bit too small? A bit too small. Yeah. What about that? So the way I do it is I've got I normally wrote function at the top. So I've got this function, the main functions, and then a few functions, a few more helper functions, and then I actually put my controller script, which is the main script, in there. So if we look at, so this is one of the main function. Close that one. Right. So this one is basically take the server name, the database, and then the query. I did say query because I just want that function to run select statement for the SQL database. So I take that thingy and then basically, and then I return the table, the data table. So that's one of my function, and then the other, I keep on clicking that thing. So the next one is where I want to run insert or update or delete. Then I'll use this function. So this basically doesn't return anything. Well, it's supposed to not return anything, but it did return something sometime. And then this one basically gives me all the information from the database, and I just say give me all this information, and then at one point I'm going to go through it on the loop. So that's the function. And then the next one is when the PowerShell script finds the new user, when it runs, it will then use this function to input that into the SQL database. And then this is for the sanity check. If there is something which the information is already on the database, but the email alert has not been sent, then we'll just use this function to update it and then send the email alert to the operations team. And then the next one is, because if I keep doing that all the time, so at one point it will just fill up the database. So I want to remove old record, which I don't think I need. So I use this function remove. It will then delete old record, depending on the date, on the number of days that I specify. Yeah. So that will remove the database. This credential is basically just to get, just to log into the Office 365 to check whether the user has got the license, issue license or not. And this is the email alert function where I use this to send alert email to operations team. All these informations are in here. Then just use that send message command. So this bit is the bit that I implement the logic which you've just seen on the flowchart diagram. So initially, we'll then log into Office 365 using the encrypted file. And then look for the expiring account and then stick it into that variable. And then go through each and every one of them, loop through it, and then get the information that I want. And before I begin sending alert email, then I just remove the old one. Oh, yeah, sorry, this is from AD, and then I'll get the user from the SQL database here. I will then loop through everyone from the SQL database if they are already in Intune on the new user list, and then check if. So basically this is, if I have to write for loop, that will probably be another for loop here, but instead of that, I just use contain. I could use in here, but because the PowerShell script that I have to write has to be compatible with the version 2, so
Lucky you.
Yeah, lucky me. Yeah. So the main reason why I'm having that is also because of the PowerShell version 2. Otherwise, I could have just used the invoke SQL command. So that. So initially it just checked whether the user is on the database already, but the email flag has been set to no, which is n, and then it will then update it, send alert email to some people in ops team, and then if the user is a new user, it will then insert a new record in here. So the way I do it, the way I implement it is I initially, when it first runs, I just take import PowerShell data file, which basically point to this file. So all the information that I want to set, I'll just have to put it in here. And if you look at my script, I don't put any data specific to my configuration. I don't actually have any data in it. So everything is in here. So the name of the SQL server, the name of the database, the number of days, and then this is just a standard account. It doesn't need to have any license to check whether the user account has got Intune license or not, and then your Intune license if you want to change it later on, and then this is the email parameter. So in here on the body bit, so I like this bit because all I did was I just put this bit, and before I actually send the email to here, I can change the name and detail. The way I do it is, let me just show you.
So can I just ask how you flag the account initially to say that they're leaving? Is that a HR process? Or
yeah, it is HR process. When somebody is about to leave or somebody put a resignation letter, they put the end date.
That in Office 365 and then you pick it up from there, or you flag it in the database?
No, we have another process in between. So we use we some kind of database. From the database, we then extract that information and then update it with the AD.
Okay.
Yeah. So where is that bit? Email send. Send reminder. Yeah. So this bit is interesting. If you guys happen to use this before, this actually as soon as you put dot at the end, it's actually allow you to go to the next line. So it kind of help you with the visualization. So that's that. And I want to send that as an HTML, and then this is where my SMTP server and then my priority. So this is that. So later on, if you say you want to know just before they leave, like a day or two before, the flag that we can set would be right here, right there, like this, and then time span, something like that. And if I'm gonna have to deploy that bit, then what I might have to do, I might have to put another field at the top here, say time span, and then do it that way. So that's my code.
So what you get from the PSD file is a giant hash table, right? And nested with different, many sub-levels of hash tables.
Yeah. So basically, let's say I want to get the information for this bit. All I have to do is, initially I will call this command there, and then stick it into that config variable, and then let you see here. I just put for the username, I just say config.ms or parameter, and then this will then pick up that value. It will then pick up this value. So mainly it's because if I'm gonna give my PowerShell script to somebody who doesn't like to see the PowerShell script, they don't want to know about it. So let's say they want to later on they want to change it. I want to change it. I want to change the number of days from 90 days to like 60 days. I can then just point to them saying, come down here. It's called config. Just change it there. Change the number of days that you want. Or if you want to later on, let's say you want to change email address to someone else, then just come down here, change it. So I think it's a lot easier.
I think also it helps a lot if you want to publish this like publicly, because you can just ignore this one file and then the rest is fine.
Yeah. So this is the actual separation of your code and your data. So I don't have to put any data in my code. I can keep it separate.
You can also achieve the same by using other alternatives like an XML file or JSON files.
Depends how you like it. I don't want to play around with the XML too much, so I prefer. Yeah.
Quite elegant.
Yeah. It's a lot cleaner, a lot clean. So, so this is it. So the next bit is what I'm gonna do here. So demo. I couldn't actually run the demo on my machine because it needs to talk to the SQL server. So what I did is I actually capture the video of it. So I'm just gonna play it. So this is the folder structure. That folder structure, even that folder structure, you can change it on your PSD file if you don't want it. If you don't want your password, encrypted password there. And yeah, connect to the database. If I just run it for the time being, I only have I manually put them in, and so this is the actual demo of that PowerShell script that we earlier saw. So it will then, let's say this person, that person is about to leave but hasn't got the license, but I actually assign the license to it so that we can find out this information. And yep. And I'm actually going to run my PowerShell script with the verbose switch. It wouldn't tell me exactly what it's doing. Signing into Office 365. So it cleaned up the database, which is older than 90 days, something like that. And I've got the alert, the email. Yeah. So that is the ticket generated by the system. So I get the thank you for contacting email to reply. So when I after that, when you run that select statement, you get someone else in there. So that way, you know, and people in the operation teams, they get the ticket on their end, so they know when to remove it. So that's that. So is there any way that I can improve it? How do I improve it? So then if I could get like a PowerShell version 5, then I could just use the, oh yeah, 6. I could just use the SQL Server module, install it, and then I can get rid of the first 2 functions. Just use the invoke SQL command. I think that would be a lot, the script will get a lot shorter, and then the credential manager. So what I actually did, credential before. So you guys see that the key, the AES key, and then the actual password encryption. So I use convert to secure string with the key, and then generate those key, and then stick it in there. So that's how I did for the credential. And if you guys try this credential manager, I don't know if any one of you have tried credential manager before. You did. Okay, someone else did. So it's actually store that information inside your credential manager, window based. You can then just use it. But this one, if you try to run your PowerShell script on a scheduled task, then you need to load the user profile. Otherwise, it won't find anything. And then the other bit is if I actually want to retire my device there and then, Microsoft don't have a straightforward PowerShell command for it, but they have Graph API. You have to call the Graph API, and they actually have sample script. So here, invoke device action. Yeah. So this is the script that you can use if you actually want to retire your device there and then. If I scroll down to the end.
So much for a one-liner, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, so right there. But I think if I wanted to do it that way, I already done quite a lot of stuff already, so I can just get the device detail from the user account. Then I think it's a lot closer to where I want to be. This is what I think. When you start writing PowerShell, even though you are like in operation teams, you start becoming like a developer. You have to think like a developer. So yeah, so that's it. So the next bit, right? Yeah, so I've done my PSD, define my requirement, split up one-liner, and then the lesson I learned after running it for some time. My boss didn't want the SQL database. So what I ended up doing was I ended up using AD attribute. So that bit I can completely get rid of the whole SQL database, but the logic is the same and it works perfectly fine. So yeah. that was it.
Any questions, guys?
No questions.